Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show, and today I'm excited to share this guest with you. I met him at a real estate conference kind of get-together thing at my friend's house, and after talking to him and kind of hearing the little bit of his story that I heard, I thought, man, I need to invite him on the podcast. I love what he's doing. I love how the impact he's having in society and the way he's helping. He's a businessman, runs a successful business, but he also is very committed to a cause of serving a certain demographic that I actually have wanted to help and impact as well. So I'm excited to hear a bit about that. But his name is Tylermgray. He said, don't leave out the R. Tylermgray. He grew up in Kearns, Utah, and got married at 19, still married today. He's got 4 kids, 2 grandkids, and now he runs his own handyman construction company. But that's kind of just scratching the surface of who this guy is and why I'm excited to have him on here. So Tyler, go ahead and share with us more of kind of your history, how maybe your early childhood, how you got to where you are, and what was that journey like, and why are you so passionate about helping people today?
Okay. Yeah, my name is Tylermgray. I grew up in Kearns. It's a town in Salt Lake City, Utah. At an early age, I got into drugs and gangs, and I ended up getting arrested at the age of 15 and went through the youth corrections program. And I didn't get out until I was about 24. When I got out at 24, through the youth correction programs, I had to work, and I met my wife, and we ended up having 4 kids. But I wasn't done doing drugs, so I kept going back to jail, back and forth until I was about 24 from my adulthood. Every time we got out, I ended up getting my wife pregnant, and we'd have another kid. Then I'd go back in until my last child. So all my kids were named by me. Serenity's my oldest. She was supposed to be my Serenity Angel, but I didn't have, to quit doing drugs and this and that, and it didn't exactly work. Then I had Damien, my devil, and Damien's kind of my hellion child. He's a lot like me, but I love the kid to death. And then I had my unique one, and her name is Unique, and she's awesome. She's a joy. And then Destiny is my final daughter, and she's the one that I actually changed my life and was able to get my life in order for. When I finally got out, I went to college at UVU for 2 years and got my construction management degree. And I started a construction handyman business. But because of my past, I went to to become a building inspector is what I was going to college for. And when I graduated and I got all the tests, I went and applied for the state of, Orange City, and they wouldn't, because of my background, they wouldn't hire me. So that's when I started my construction company. And I just used my education that I had from that to prolong my general contracting career. I've been in business for 17 years now, and have done 1 million transactions. I don't know, a lot throughout those years. I can't even remember them all. And grow my business. And I was also working at Albertsons while I was running my construction company as a butcher and running a meat department. for 10 years. And then my construction company took off. I was working with some different builders in the state of Utah and doing their warranties and basement finish and stuff, being their super. And then I kind of went off and started working with another investment company. And they were buying anywhere from 5 to 10 houses a month. And I was their contractor, and we were doing all the work for them. And after saving enough money, I started purchasing my own and then breaking free and doing my own. And I now own 32 properties, and 9 of those are my sober living houses. This last year and a half ago, almost 2 years now, we were getting ready to start Airbnbs, and like everybody else was. And I had a friend of mine come to me with a business proposal to start sober living houses and help people in recovery have a place to go. And so we've been able to successfully get 5 of them up and running. We have over 100 beds, and we have 4 more in the process of being fully licensed. So we'll have over 200 beds when we're done, male and female. And I think next year we'll start a outpatient program and start being able to give back to other people and help them succeed in life, for those that want it. But not everybody wants recovery or are ready for it. So, but we still have about a 92% success rate, which is pretty cool. And so I love doing that.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, yeah, I want to kind of go back to the beginning. So thank you so much for sharing. I've got so many questions. But you say at 15 years old, that was when you first got arrested. Like just because I think sometimes there's a lot of people who don't relate with that outcome. I grew up in Grantsville, Utah, which is kind of the other side of the Oakers from Kearns. And Kearns, I don't know, always had a reputation of being a little bit rougher neighborhood than Grantsville. But right. There's plenty of stuff that people get up to in Grantsville. I'm just curious, like, what was family life like? Are you the oldest, youngest? Like, were there other people who were looking out for you, or is it just?
So I'm the youngest of 3 boys. So I got 2 older brothers. My oldest brother moved out when he was 16 and got his own apartment. And my other brother ended up going to Job Corps. So I basically was on my own since I was like, I don't know, 10 or 11. And my parents, my dad drove yellow cab, so he was always gone. He'd get up 5 o'clock in the morning and leave and be driving cab. And my mom worked for Discover Card and was always gone working. So I just hung out on the streets, really. And as a young lost kid, I found kids that were not up to so good, but seemed like a good time at the time, and just decided to make bad choices in life or whatever at an early age.
How aware were your older siblings, your older brothers, that what was going on? I know they moved away, but did they ever come back and check in? And also, how aware were your parents that you were kind of struggling with that?
Well, they knew that I was getting into drugs and that, and but I was a lost child. They couldn't control me. I like I said, was into the drugs and gangs, brought guns into the house, had lots of drugs in the house. They were always gone, so we'd party until they'd come home, and then we'd leave, or whatever. And anyway, it was just it was a mess. And so I started smoking weed at 11, and by the age of 13, I started doing meth and helping cook meth and stuff. So by the time at 15, when I finally got arrested, we got into a high-speed chase, and we had a meth lab, a sawed-off shotgun, and stuff in the car, and that's what I went, Decker Lake for and stuff. So
right. So yeah, I'm curious, as there's obviously, I mean, I don't know if signs is the right word, but how can somebody go support if they know somebody who's maybe making similar choices like that? You mentioned you went to jail-ish, whatever, youth corrections at 15, and you didn't really figure your life out till you're 24. So that's 9-ish years, and you tried back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and you just weren't ready. Is there like things that other people can do to help people become ready faster, or is it just like just let it run its course till they figure it out?
Um, for me, my parents had to pretty much kick me out and make me go out on my own. I mean, there was chances that I could have came back home, but I would have revolted back to my same lifestyle. I got into the drugs and I thought they were fun and they were really connected to me. And I tried to give them up a few different times throughout the years, and until I finally lost my marbles and had enough, and I went through certain things in my life that I decide, that drugs are no good, and I learned that the people that I was hanging out with were not really my true friends, and it takes a lot of that just to happen. But I think being there and supporting them when they're trying is important, but not enabling them, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And that's a hard line to kind of cross because you always want to do everything for somebody.
sure. Well,
But yeah, if I see them making some progress in that, then helping them along the way is probably the help.
yeah. One of the things that I have stressed on this podcast multiple times and have talked with other guests about is that I am a deep believer that we all have the ability to change. We all have the ability to grow. We're not locked into who we are right now, and that change can happen over time, or it can happen in an instant. It's not like there's no one size fits all as far as how change happens. But I have found that a lot of times change happens at the end of finding out why we're seeking what it is we're seeking. So when you were younger, do you feel like you knew what you were looking for, or were you just hoping for like what was the thing that you were looking for that drugs or the gangs provided for you that you weren't getting elsewhere?
I think the acceptance and just camaraderie, having people around, and um, stuff like that, kind of was what I was looking for. I didn't. My parents were always working. My brothers were always gone, so I went out to find friends, and I didn't find the best of friends, but they at the time were there for me, and we did a lot of crazy fun things at the time, and and I enjoyed it, until later in life, and then you had to pay the consequences for it, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah, no, that's good. Just insight of like what is it that those were providing for you when you got into the youth correction system? How efficient or effective was that? I mean, you were in there, then you got out and in and out. What were some of the focuses inside of that system that helped you to recover?
um well, I ended up going through a wilderness program, and that wilderness program helped, get we'd have to hike and do all kinds of stuff, so it gave me self knowledge that I could do hard things and be able to hike or go over or pack or live in the wild, or without nothing, and just make it like I could survive. I have a survival mode that I can kick in. I could be dropped off anywhere in the world and I could live, you know what I mean? So I gained a lot of knowledge and acceptance there. I actually, it was a 6-month program, and then I actually enrolled
Your audio went
for
down.
a year of my life.
Your audio went down. So you said
Yeah,
after that it was a 6-month program, and then
and then I went back for another 6 months because I volunteered for and be peer staff for 6 months.
okay. And what age was that?
I think I was about 16 then.
16. So you were starting to see some of those changes. How did you end up meeting your wife? Is she also in that system
No,
at the same time?
no. So my wife actually was her family comes LDS, really good family or whatever. I ended up being after the wilderness program. They put me into a group home, and part of the conditions of the group homes, I had to get a job. So I went to work for Albertsons, and my wife actually worked at Albertsons too, and that's where we met. And I was 17 then, about 17.
And you guys got married at 19. In between that relationship, did you guys already have a kid, or at what point did you go have your first child?
About we got married a few days before my first daughter was born.
Okay.
So a year after getting married, I ended up getting her pregnant, or getting together. I ended up getting her pregnant, and then we got married. And then we did move and try to get had an apartment, but I wasn't done selling drugs. But I was hiding that I was selling drugs because that's how I made my money as a kid. And because I cooked meth, I learned how to cook meth at an early age, and so I was cooking meth. But I'd get up at 8 o'clock in the morning and leave, and wouldn't come home till 5 o'clock like a normal guy. But I was out selling drugs or making drugs or whatever, and she thought I was just going to work. So I hid it from her for the first couple years until we ended up getting raided, and then that was an experience for her to go through because she comes from
no
an
idea.
LDS.
I mean, she knew that
no idea. Yeah.
She knew that was part of your past, though, and just
Yeah, kind of, but I hid it pretty well. But from her, at least I thought I did anyway, right?
well, until some police come through your front door, then it's hard to hide that.
Yeah, right. And they're
Close your eyes, it's not real.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know why she's still with me, but she loves me.
Hey, well, that's really cool. So that happened. You go back in, and that was your first child. I love how all of your kids were named after the specific time in your life.
Yeah.
So after you went back in, how long were you in for the second time before you got out, and then how long were you out? Like, what was that time in and out?
Like 18 months. So I did 18 months. Then I got out, and then we ended up getting her pregnant. She stuck around or whatever. The apartment we lost. She went back to her family member's house. I got out. They let me come stay there for a while. I ended up getting her pregnant again, and we had our second child. And then I think I got arrested again, and I went back. Or we already had my first child. When we got raided, she was pregnant with my son. Then when I got out, I got her pregnant with my other daughter, Unique, and I actually did, I think, 24 months that stay, and I missed Unique's birth. So Unique is my own child. I missed her birth, and then anyway, I got out after she was born, like slightly after she was born, and I had her pregnant with Destiny, and I was supposed to be changing my life. But I think I actually ended up going back for like 8 months on a probation violation after Destiny. And then I kind of straightened my life out after that.
Through that time, was it using still, or was it mostly just like, this is how I make money, this is what I know, it's easy, everybody knows who I am, they know where to look, and it just like made, even though it doesn't make sense politically or legally, it just makes sense. Like, it's like, oh, that's just an easy thing to do, and it's hard not.
Yeah, and so that's kind of was the system or whatever that I was doing, and that's how I was making money. And but I was an addict as well. I was addicted to it. I liked doing drugs, at the time, and I'd now been clean 17 years off of meth and stuff, so it's been pretty good. But
yeah.
But yeah, and so it is what it is, and that's kind of how I had to live my lifestyle. And then I was able to go to UVU, work the 2 jobs, and then work my way to where I am now. So I'm one of those success stories. But the hardest part for me, it was finally figuring out that all my so-called old friends or whatever were only around because they wanted what I could provide for them, right? And
Right.
the only people that were really truly my friends that really mattered was my family that stuck around even on the hard times. Because even when I was locked up, none of those guys were there except
Right.
for my family. Right, my wife was pretty much my only visitor, so she's other than my mom, that ever came and saw me through that almost 10 years of my life being locked up.
Right. So how did you go about separating yourself from, because this is something, again, this isn't just a situation where you were in. Maybe not everybody's going to have to go to jail or have those experiences, but I think everybody probably has people in their life at some point where they need to change their crowd if they want to get different results. If they want to become more of what their potential is, then they have to change their crowd. And that's not to say anything bad per se about the previous crowd, but if you want to grow and become something, like the way I met you is hanging out with the Red Suit Realtor, Scott, right? And that's a crowd. That's a way different crowd than the crowd you were in before. And now you're able to create different things. So what was that process like to create that separation? Because I know sometimes it's hard to cut people off or to avoid them, lose your phone number. Somehow people still find out who you are, where you are, and get a hold of you. So what was that process like to actually separate and change your crowd?
I think it was more of a mindset within myself, even because they even come, sometimes they'll still find me today even and come and try to get me to do things for them. It's not for drug related now, but more of like when they get all fucked up and they ruin their house or something, they want me to come fix it and then for free or whatever. But for my mindset, it is when they call me, I just tell them, look, bro, I'm sorry, but I can't help you. You know what I mean? I'm done with that, even hanging out, and I'm not just going to come do stuff for you for free. I mean, if you're my friend or whatever, you're going to pay me, right? So, because I'm running a business here and whatever, and you should support me, like, so just making that mind change in myself to know that I'm better or I don't deserve to be around that type of people anymore, or even changing my crowd or leveling up. Some people get jealous or hate on the fact that I'm being more successful or I'm going a different direction or, and that's that on them. And I can't hold them back but I know where I'm going and what I'm trying to do.
Right. No, I think that is, at least for me in my own life, I can speak that it's one of the hardest things is creating that separation and setting clear boundaries. There's a author, Steve Siebold, and he wrote a book called The 177 Mental Toughness Secrets. And he used to train the Navy SEALs on mental toughness. That's what his firm did for like 20 years. And one of the things he says is that by age 8 years old, we're all at like heroin addict level to the approval of others. Like all we learn from age baby is how to be approved by others. So whether that's when to cry, how to express, like everything is so that other people will be happy with us. And so we get addicted to this approval of others. And it's really difficult to set those boundaries and say, look, I can't do that. I'm not doing that. If you were really my friend, you would treat me better, right? Friends don't let friends give them discounts. We pay them for what they're worth because it's what they're worth, right? So that is a mindset shift. And what do you feel like was either the experience or the person who helped you? What was that thing that helped you shift that mindset perspective of like, you know what, I'm worth it. And it's time now that I can confidently set my boundaries in the face of somebody asking me to violate them?
It's sad that I had to go, be locked up in a cell or whatever and do that. But, I always thought that I was part of a clique, right? And when I went to jail, I thought that my so-called homies would have my back. And when I ended up in a cell, trying to get jumped because of, choosing to be a certain way, and all of your so-called homies don't back you up and they sit there and watch and laugh at you, that was when I made the big change in my life and said, this shit's bullshit and I ain't fucking doing this no more. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm going to be standing here in my cell by myself, then this is all I got in life. Then I better be happy with who I am, and I'll stand up for anybody or to anybody because I believe in myself, and I don't need nobody's help or nobody's backing to get through whatever challenges I have to go through in life. And that made the change for me that when I finally did my last day, and I came out and I applied myself, I started going to college and bettering myself, bettering my family, and making those changes that a lot of people today don't even recognize me. That we'll be in the same room with kids that I gone to elementary, junior high school until I got locked up, because I didn't really get to go to high school because I was I was locked up in youth correction from then until whatever. I didn't get to go to prom, didn't get to go to those things that I wish to hell that I would have been able to now. But
Sure.
because the stupid decisions that I made put me to where I didn't get to experience those normal things. I had to live life the hard way and learn the hard road, and I still make a lot of mistakes, but I learn from them and then grow, and that's why I'm here today doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, which I love it. One other question before we move on to the kind of the next thing about the work. Well, they're not really work release. What are they called? The sober living things. Because I want to ask questions about that. But what role did God play? You mentioned how your wife was kind of raised LDS, and with that kind of background and belief there. What role did God play in either your recovery or even in your relationship with her throughout those times?
So I ended up getting converted when I was 24, LDS. So I'm LDS right now.
Okay.
My wife actually doesn't believe in it anymore and has strayed away from the church, which is typical. Most people that were raised LDS, they either stay with it the whole life or they fall away from it, right? But I converted, and I actually go to church on Sundays and take the sacrament, which is really funny. And she doesn't come, but which is kind of weird. But anyway, but I don't stick around for all the other stuff or whatever. I just go take my sacrament and come home. I believe in being me, and
Sure.
and I'm not there to climb a biblical ladder or anything like that. I go for the Spirit and to repent of my sins and the different things for me that gives me my strength or whatever, and which I think is the best way to be anyway. So, yeah, God is protecting me. Even I ended up having a really bad my last trip on drugs. My wife was getting ready to leave me, and this was before my last day. And she did leave, took the kids and left. And I ate way too much drugs and was trying to kill myself. And I ended up walking along the freeway butt ass naked and thought that I was Jesus. And I literally seen the clouds part, and I can remember it clear as day, and everybody thinks that you're just crazy or in a psychosis, but God told me to bear all my garments and prove that Jesus lived, and I did it, and it actually was the life-changing experience that I needed to become better, and so that made me by doing that made me change my life, you know what I mean? And so yeah, I ended, yeah.
That's cool. Well, I just think that it's interesting to hear different people's stories of recovery, and recovery can be done with anything. Like it couldn't be pornography. It could be, I mean, honestly, like cell phone addiction is crazy, and it's hard for me to like go to the bathroom without a cell phone, which is like,
right.
You have to discipline yourself and say, no, I'm not doing that. Or on Sundays, hey, I'm going to put my cell phone on the charger and I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to spend time with my kids intentionally. I'm not going to habitually just look at my phone all the time or grab my phone or need my phone by me. Those are like little things. You think they're little, but maybe those little things are what's stopping you from real connection and relationship, which ends up being a big thing in 5-10 years from now when you don't remember your child because you never took the time to connect because you were inhibited by the little things that are socially somewhat acceptable to be on your phone all the time. So I don't think that there's any thing that if it's something you can't live without, then it's probably something you should live without. Minus
right.
oxygen and water and food.
All right.
But even those things you could overdo, so you got to do it in connection with good habits. So let's talk about sober living, because from my understanding of how these sober living houses work, you're basically taking a bunch of people who have had substance abuse problems and putting them all in one house and saying, hey, this is going to be a recovery zone and you've got certain rules you have to abide by, and keep the rules. And you mentioned you have a really good success rate. At what point, like, had you gone into one of those sober living houses when you were 19 or, something like that, would that have been better for you? I feel like you're still surrounded by a bunch of people who are all struggling with the same thing, but maybe it's better to be surrounded by people who are, their goals are the same to get off of drugs, rather than be surrounded by a bunch of people who don't understand you and never did drugs. So I'm trying to understand that dynamic.
Okay, so all of our houses, there's two to a room, and because the partner or whoever we partner with them is their kind of their support system when they're the accountability partner, right? So we put two to a room. They have an accountability partner. All of the people that are in our homes have done a 90-day inpatient program and graduated, and now they're out of the inpatient program and they still have a 90-day outpatient program to complete, but they need a place in between, and that's where sober living comes involved. And so they're graduate from the inpatient, so they don't have to be an inpatient. They're working an outpatient. They're placed in our houses, in our facilities. They have accountability partners within the house and a house manager, making sure that the whole house is supervised. And then we come in once a week and do house meetings as well on Sundays, and just make sure that with all the house managers, and make sure all the houses are running properly. We also do three drug tests every week on every client to make sure they're not using or doing drugs while they're in our properties. And we do peer staff support as well and help the clients. But while they're in our homes, they have to be working their outpatient program, and then they have to go and they have to find a job or some sort of a job, get back on their feet. The government does assist with their pay for 6 months. They cover their room and board for 6 months, and then we help them get on like food stamps or some sort of, so they can get food. And then we help them, if they ain't got a vehicle, we help them get like a bus pass or a bike donation, and give them a bike so they can get around and get self-sufficient so they can start, getting back into society. After the people's been there for 6 months, a lot of them are now, because the state doesn't pay for them anymore, and they've already got a job, so they stay anywhere from another 2 to 6 months in the house, as long as, they're comfortable still working their outpatient. But then I also have other rental properties that I place them in rooms and get them to their next stage. So then they go rent a room from me, and then they stay there for about a year. And then after renting a room, some of them have graduated and they're actually renting some of my long-term rentals and getting back into society. So we work with them, but every so often there'll be, one will relapse or one goes back or doesn't make it. And you can see the signs, and there's certain rules and policies and procedures that are in place that they all sign at the beginning when they come into the homes, that they know that they can only do, if they go get high again, that they're automatically out of the house because there's other people that we have to protect. And, and everybody seems to respect that. The male houses seem to run a little bit smoother than the female houses. The females just seem to fight over stupid stuff, like they use their shampoo or something, or whatever. But so there's a lot of more where we have to be more on top of it and watching what's going on within the houses. But it is what it is, and it's pretty awesome process. So I've had about 6 people work through. We've only been in business a little over a year, going on 2 years now. And through the houses that we've been able to get up and running, I've been able to place about 4 people in a long-term rental situation, which to me is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think it's so cool that you take them all the way from kind of beginning to end, and it's really a part of your journey. So like you're going back and you're taking your experience and you're going and helping those other people who are struggling with that, I know in in Utah, I feel like you can't drive anywhere without seeing a billboard that's talking about how like the opioid addictions and things, and it's not always just street drugs, but it could be prescription medicines,
Right.
that again seem on the surface like everything's going okay, but then underlying they're really struggling. And so
Yeah.
how do we help these people actually make a transformation and a change in their life, and what does that and then impact into the next generation and into their children? How many of the, like on average, of people who are in those scenarios, how many of them are people who are married and have children just like you were when you were in that scenario?
There's a few of them, and those are the ones that seem to kind of, stay this 6 months and then they go back to their family and then usually are doing better. The support system helps a lot better with them being able to get back into it or have a desire to want to change, where some of our clients, they, don't have anything, don't have nobody to go back to, all of their families disowned them, and they just kind of ride that pity potty, my life sucks kind of shit. Nobody cares about me, and just goes back to using drugs. And those are the people that we have to, really help a lot. And then in their outpatient program, we're working with their therapists and different stuff and communicating, look, these guys at the house are just, down. And then, some of them get on medication to help with their depression. And so there's also, even though, we're not mental health facility or whatever, but there's a lot of mental health that goes into helping these guys recover and just giving them that support. Even when my construction jobs, when we get like a fix and flip and we have to clean out a house, and they need something to do, I'll have them, hey, let's go clean out this house, or let's go demo this house, and get them back on their feet, get them working, getting them some money in their pockets and doing things that they can succeed. And some of them we've even helped start their own businesses and get them their own companies and get them working and doing, what they have a passion for. Because a lot of them are hustlers. I mean, they hustle all the time for the drugs, right? So if we can get them to change their focus into something positive, a lot of them succeed and really, really find that life's actually manageable without drugs.
Sure. So I want to highlight a few of the questions that I feel like have come up, not necessarily questions that you have vocalized, but things that maybe were the spawn, right? So when you were in the situation where you recognize your friends weren't there, I think a question, it seems like the question was, hey, is there really nobody here for me? Or who is really here for me? I think that question is a really valuable question for all of us to consider. Make a list, write it down. In my book, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy, I actually talk about this, that after each of the 9 sections, I have this question, like, who are the people who are my haters? Who are the people who don't believe in me? Who are these people? And the reason I want to know who these people are is because a lot of the people who are detracting us from our success are often doing it because they don't believe that they can have their own success. And if they can't have success, then you can't have success. And so the reason we want to know who these haters are, who these people are that are detracting us, is because we need to know how to be an example to them, not so we can shun them, but so we can be an example to them. So asking that question, who are these people? Who are the people who definitely don't have your back? Make a list of them. And then make a list of the people who, they have your back. They've proven it over and over and over and over and over. They have your back. They're there for you. They care about you. They're going to support you. And maybe write a thank you card to the people who do have your back, and don't write anything. Just stop talking to I don't know. I have a friend who he was talking to me about in referral partnerships. He establishes a referral partnership. He does his best to make it profitable, but whenever it doesn't seem like it's working out, then rather than just ghosting each other and stop sending business to each other, he calls them and says, hey, I just want to formally end our referral partnership and make sure that I'm not going to send you any more business, because it doesn't seem like you're sending me any business. It doesn't seem like we're a good fit for each other. Hope you find somebody else to direct business your way. And I'm like, geez, that's another layer of like, you're being very bold about your boundaries and what's going to happen. And you're communicating it clearly, to everybody.
Right.
So anyway, it's just a fascinating, tidbit there. But I think that question is really, really valuable. What other questions do you feel like you asked yourself that kind of led to your recovery?
I had to ask myself often, like, why am I doing these, or why do I keep making the same choices, and why do I keep returning to old past behaviors? Those were the questions I had to ask myself often to make a change.
Yeah. Self-analyzing. If you start to recognize a pattern, hey, where is this pattern starting? Where's the start point so we can change the start point of our behaviors? And that's another big question. If you're not happy with where you're at, then you need to look and say, okay, well, where is this going wrong? I just did this with with my life, and I committed to some things that I'm just like, I don't love doing them, but also I don't hate doing them. So one of the things I've started doing is jumping in cold water every morning, doing these cold plunge
Yeah.
things.
All
And it's
right.
not fun. I'm not going to sit here and say it's fun, but like the reason that I haven't been doing it or I haven't ever done it is because I really don't like being cold. But just like you learned in your wilderness survival, like you can do hard things, you can push past those things. That's what this jumping in an ice bath is doing for me right now. Is like the first minute and a half, it takes about 45 seconds for me to recover my breathing, and then the next 45 seconds for my body to go numb. But after about a minute and a half, I could stay in there for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 3 minutes or 2 minutes. It doesn't matter, because at that point you're just there, right?
Right.
It's not getting any worse being there. And I think that knowing that in a very physical, putting your body through the physical experience of this is life-changing, to know, look, there's a certain amount of crap you have to go through to get a positive result, to get growth, to get becoming. And avoiding that or getting in and getting out before you get to that point isn't really helping you. And for me, that was something that I've just started doing this week that's really transforming my mentality. And it went back to, I don't like where my business is at right now. I think we could and should have done a lot better this year than we did. Didn't get close to my goals. And so I had to go back and say, well, what were my habits? What were my behaviors? When did I get depressed and stop doing what I need to do? And how do I go get the right support for me? And maybe for you, you can relate to this. Sounds like you can. But like for me, my wife is way more determined to do things than I am. Like I would much rather give up when things get hard, or adjust how I'm doing it to make it more comfortable. But my wife, she deals with kids every day, and she can't just like get rid of the kids. And so even when everything is terrible, she just keeps doing what she knows she has to do. And that muscle's really strong in her. And so I said, hey, babe, I need you to jump in the water with me every morning. And she does not enjoy it, but she does it, and it helps me do it. And so I enlisted her into my goals to help me stay more accountable to that process. And so I think that's huge. Why do I keep returning to this old behavior? What keeps missing? And how do we shift the habits and shift the perspectives to make sure that we actually make the changes necessary? So that's a huge one. What about when you started to grow your business? What was the thing that gave you the idea, or what question led to you starting sober living houses and really taking, kind of turning back to that demographic and saying, lending them a helping hand rather than just moving on and saying, hey, I passed that, I want to wash my feet of that whole crowd? What led you to go back and say, hey, how can we help the next generation? What questions did you ask there?
When I finally committed to do the sober living, I mean, I gave up doing drugs. I like to ride motorcycles, and when we go out riding motorcycles to Sturgis every year or whatever, I would drink alcohol on those adventures, right? And when I actually started the sober livings, I didn't want to become a hypocrite and have people in the homes, and then them seeing me out bars and drinking and different stuff. So when I started my sober living house, I committed to the sober living for an internal thing for me, and I gave up even drinking on occasions when we go out riding motorcycles. So I don't drink alcohol or don't do any kind of drugs or anything total anymore. But because but just being able to go out and make those commitments and decisions on point, just like cigarettes, I did smoke cigarettes or vape, and I just quit. And everybody's like, how the hell did you just quit? It's because I made the damn decision to quit. And so my willpower inside my mind is a lot stronger than a lot of people's. And so just being able to make a decision and then following through with it and making it happen has changed my life.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. So like what things, so like a question could be, what things do I need to decide? What things do I need to stop doing to live more in alignment with what I want to provide for the world? And that's really like, sometimes what you need to stop doing, there's a longer list and it's easier to identify than all the things you need to start doing. And a lot of times there's not a lot of things you need to start doing. There's things that you're already doing. You just need to do more of. Not necessarily start doing, but do more of. And that's another experience from my commitments that I made on Sunday last week was, it's not that I need to start making phone calls. I already make phone calls every day, but I need to do more of those. So what does that mean I have to cut out? I used to scroll on Instagram and Facebook and send funny reels to my friends and all those things. This week, I've done very little of that because I don't have time to, because I'm making phone calls now. So it's like, when you think about, it's like cutting certain things out so that you have more time to do the things you did. And the other thing I would do is I would listen to audiobooks, things like that, and say, oh, I'm doing personal development. So that's good. That's working. Had to get rid of the excuses, get rid of the things that like I could maybe pass off as working, but really they're not moving the needle. They're not helping me get anywhere because I'm not doing anything with what I'm learning. I'm just like learning as a way to avoid doing what I don't want to do. Yeah. And so it's like one of my commitments was I'm not going to do any passive listening. I'm not going to listen to podcasts, even good podcasts or books, even good books. I'm not going to listen to any of it until I've done my daily commitments. And if I haven't done my daily commitments, then I'm not doing it. And if I run out of time, then I ran out of time to listen to all those fun things, but I have to do my daily commitments. And so, anyways, those are good questions to just ponder on, to focus on how can I become better? How can I get to the next level? Because we're going into 2024. This is probably going to be posted end of January. But like, what are those things that you can recommit to make 2024 a year to remember, to be proud of the year of 2024?
Well, for me, I've been asking myself a lot of these questions. How can I get better? What can I do to succeed? And a lot of it is setting up systems in place for the things that I don't need to be doing that take up a lot of my time. And I need to implement those onto my different, people in charge and actually giving them the torch and letting them have it and not taking it back when I don't think they're doing it right. Because I keep taking it back because I have a hard time letting go. And I have to just let go of that torch and let them run that business. Because I actually run 19 companies and I have a lot of things going on. And a lot of people are like, how do you do it? And it's just, I have some systems in place, but I need to implement better systems. And I also need to finish the things that I've already started before I take on new projects. Sure. And so that's what I'm going to be focusing on a lot of for this new 2024 is accomplishing the goals that I've already set, getting them finished and actually running without me having to be there. And so I can step aside and I can focus on the things that I want to do to implement and push the businesses to the next level.
Awesome. Well, I love it. Hey, thank you so much, Tyler. Any final things you want to say before we go?
No, but thank you for having me on. It's been an honor.
Yeah, no problem.
Learned a lot from you, so thank you.
Absolutely. And we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy Show. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me, and if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.